Good evening, everyone. Onegaishimasu. I hope everyone is very well. I'm going to read Shokushu number 9 tonight, the subconscious. The subconscious mind is composed of material that is taken, I beg your pardon. The conscious mind is composed of material that is taken from the subconscious mind, which is the accumulation of past experiences and knowledge. Let's stop putting minus thoughts into the subconscious mind from now on. It is the storehouse of our minds. Let's maintain plus key and live our lives with an active spirit. So, I always watch Tracy Reasoner Sensei's Monday night class, but I never watch it live. I watch it the next day or two. They send it to me, and I watch it, and then they put it on YouTube. Well, I never miss it, and I watch the whole hour, so I get to see what everybody has to say. And it's very enjoyable for me. I really love that class. And I thought, well, maybe tonight, as a discussion, I'd give myself an opportunity to say a couple of things from the other side of the streets, as it were. I hope you'll find it enjoyable and instructive. But before we do, we'll do some key breathing. So please sit up straight, close your eyes. Okay. Stretch your body if you like. So I started by saying how much I enjoy the Monday night classes that Tracy Reasoner Sensei leads. And I do because I get to hear, it's like the fly on the wall I've always wanted to be, I get to hear what each of you have to say, many of you have to say, about your experience with me and how you take that, what you take that to be. I think I want to start by emphasizing even though when you hear different people talk about this experience of teacher-student relationship or otomo practice, that's the formal word for that, let's say. But for me, there's almost no common element. It's every single student is different. Every single person I interact with in the dojo, or in my role as instructor, is unique, and each one is in a different position in terms of their otomo practice. And everybody is practicing otomo. If you're in the dojo, you're otomo, okay? That's just a word that we use, that we formally assign to someone that takes on the task of being watched while they're doing that, of being noticed while they're doing that, having an official capacity in some way. But everybody's doing it. Everybody in every moment is practicing. When I look at a student, I'm just looking to see what their practice is. People think that when I'm going to give them, maybe recommend them for rank, or tell somebody, why don't you test now? You know, yeah, I think Tracy went through the thing of not, you have to be careful not to ask. Uh, but, well, I mean, of course, it means you're missing the point entirely if you have to ask. But for me, I'm not adding up their hours. I could care less. I just look at them. I look at you. And I'm saying this about this because, well, look, folks, so I hear you, there's this progression of maturity that happens. In the beginning, of course, when you get criticized or you get corrected, it doesn't make you very comfortable. And so you make excuses. You give the sensei the reason why you did what you did. It made sense to you. And you want to, explain to the sensei why you were an idiot about something, or you did something, foolish. But then as you mature, you realize, well, that's kind of an insult because he was there and he watched it, so he knows. He knows already, right? So then you get a little bit more mature and you think, okay, so I don't need to explain. I don't need to give excuses. I don't need to blame myself or anyone else. I don't need to apologize. I'll just be stoic about it. I'll just proceed with my work. But you see, this is just the same. That's no different at all. Because who are you thinking about when you say that? Who are you thinking about when you direct yourself in this way? You're still not Otomo. You're still not practicing. What true maturity in our practice means that we're thinking about the other person. We are not thinking about everything in relation to ourselves. This is like a no-brainer, right? I mean, everybody knows this. I'm not surprising you when I tell you that's what the practice is. But in reality, everybody is driving their own car, their bumper car. And they're bumping into, and they're trying to figure how to not be so obtrusive, but it's all about them. It's all about me doing this. The whole point of this kind of practice, of course, is for the student to mature, for the student to grow and develop. And in this regard, I'm also a student. So we're all students together, and we're all growing and developing. So that everybody is in the process. But no one is not training. No one is not. We're always practicing something in every moment. And it may be that in a beginner's case, he or she only practices just momentarily, once in a while in the dojo, and practices moving toward maturity. What I consider maturity, what that means is the degree of your attention on someone else rather than on yourself. Of course, Otomo is just a practice with the sensei because he's there for that, for you. So you can do that. But that's just the beginning. Of course, if your idea of Otomo is to be doing a good job, or to be in your sensei's good graces, or if you think it's about you, then you're going to be a mess as an instructor. You might be very talented, and you might be very experienced, and you might be useful as a human being, but so when I mean a mess by an instructor, I mean you're not demonstrating mind-body unification. You're not demonstrating selflessness. to the students. You may be teaching it, but you're not demonstrating it when you're teaching it. You're not in that state of mind. I think you've heard me say again and again and again, a teacher needs to be in the state of mind that he or she is teaching. This is what Suzuki Sensei taught me. This is what Tohei Sensei constantly asserted about himself, that he was in the state of mind. So you don't need to hear what he says, you need to just look and see. I think someone pointed out the other night that sometimes people don't copy so well. I got a kick out of that. I think that's true, of course, that's true. So the method of having people, saying, well, I don't need to say anything, they should just look at me. But that's kind of silly. Because, of course, we all need all the help we can get from you. Please, please think about the student. Don't think about yourself as an instructor. Don't think about how you do it. Don't think about what's the right way, because you learned that as a student and you never change. You're still doing it as an instructor. Don't do that. The whole point is transcending your personal ego needs, not making them more correct or making them more impressive or making those ego needs more mature. That's not what I'm talking about when I say maturity. I'll tell you a story. How's that? So I have lots of stories, of course, because I traveled a lot with Suzuki Sensei. And one time we went to Brazil together. And it was at this period of his life, he was about my age, but he was not in good health. This was, maybe he was even a little younger than I am, but he was not in good health. And it turned out, later we found out that it was because his medications were contradicting each other and causing problems. But I remember on a work day seeing him come to the dojo and he couldn't step up over the curb from the street. Someone had to go help him. He was using a cane. We found out later, I called Melissa Labar, Andrew Labar's wife, ex-wife now, and she's a pharmacist. And I read her the list and she said, oh my God, his doctors aren't talking to each other. So that was the case. He was not in good health. But still, he was a great teacher, even in his state. And so I went to Brazil with him, and one night we had to give a demonstration. And because he wasn't feeling well, he asked me to do the demonstration, which I did. And then we got done about 10, maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock. And they had arranged for us to see a capoeira demonstration. Well, I'd never seen capoeira at that time before. I don't know if you know, but capoeira developed by the slaves developed it, and they're not supposed to do, the rule is they cannot do martial arts. So they would make this circle and they would play the drums and the berimbau and this two-string instrument, and they would chant and make noise. And they would hide that they were doing martial arts in the middle of the circle. But so if you want to watch capoeira, the watching area is up above in the stands, looking down into the circle. It's very beautiful. And the funny thing about this, I'm getting to the story about the Otomo part, but the interesting thing about this is the chief instructor of Rio de Janeiro, the capoeira chief instructor, was 35 years old. And so Suzuki Sensei went, and I went up to thank him afterward and compliment him on his students, which were spectacular. It was just amazing. They flip through the air and land on one hand and then flip again right off of that hand. I mean, it's just amazing what they can do. And I said, I can't help but ask you, how is it that you're the chief instructor of this whole place? You're only 35 years old. And he said, oh, Well, you can't do capoeira after you're about 22. It's made for very, very young people, not older people. So he said, it's easy for me. I've been done training as a capoeira, performer for 10 years already. I found that very interesting. Anyway, so I was Otomo for Suzuki Sensei, and he was not in good health. And I was hungry. We hadn't had any dinner. And it was like 10 o'clock at night or 10:30 or something. And I wanted to go have a beer and some pizza. They invited us. So I looked to Sensei and he said, I'm not feeling really great. I'm pretty tired. But he said, as a Sensei tends to do, if you'd like to go, I'm fine with it. I'll be good. I'll be fine. And I said, okay, because I was hungry and I was thirsty. So I'm just like Toby's guy. I'm a crier also. Anyway, we went to this pizza place and they sat us out on there was a, what do you call it, sidewalk cafe. The street was right there. So 4 or 5 of us sat around this round table and they ordered beer and glasses of beer came and they brought a beer for Sensei, naturally. And he took a sip and he looked at me and I looked at him and he just went blank and he just dropped his head at the table like that, out cold. I just, oh my God, the headlines flashed in my mind. Idiot student kills Sensei in Brazil, It was just terrifying for me. So I jumped up and I kind of got him and he sort of woke up and I yelled at somebody, go get the car, bring the car, please. I have to take Sensei back to the room. And so I got him in the car and I took him back to the room and he was still feeling pretty poorly. I got his shoes off, but he didn't seem to want to take his clothes off. So I just kind of put the blanket over him. And he's acting all, like woozy and crazy. And of course, we have a seminar, and the next morning, the first class is at 9 o'clock. And I am already thinking to myself, this is how selfish I was. I'm already thinking to myself, I'll bet I'll get to teach that class tomorrow morning because he's not feeling well. And just as I thought that, his eyes popped open and he said, I'm teaching that class tomorrow morning, not you. I went back to sleep. So, I mean, you can imagine how I felt. But, I tell you the story because, for one thing, to let you know that I'm just as much of an idiot as everybody else when it came to learning about this kind of thing, but also that this was my way of dealing with it, as is yours, let's face it, was taking care of myself, was making myself feel better. And I'm not, okay, so I made a big mistake on insisting that we go have some beer and pizza. And I got burned for that. I got slapped hard for that. I got him back to the dojo. Back to the hotel room. I'm already thinking about how I'm going to take advantage of this the next day so that I get to teach that class, not him. And I get slapped for that. And then when I went in the bathroom and started preparing to go to bed, we were in the same room in a hotel with 2 different beds. And all I could think about was how terrible I felt and how I needed to be calm so that I could make myself feel better. Not once did I think, or did my thoughts concern him, actually. My only concern was that I would be blamed. Did you see? So this is not Otomo. This is pure, unadulterated selfish ego. And so the process, you know, over the years is learning to care for someone else actually, not to look good like you're doing that. It's quite an experience when you begin to realize that you actually don't, you're not thinking about yourself. You know, and that's why, you know, when we're together as your teacher, what I'm noticing is your state of mind, is your state of practice. Let's put it that way. Your state of practice. Suzuki Sensei would say, fellas, it's all about your level of development. That's what I'm watching. That's what he used to say. I didn't. He was very strict with me, of course. He was very kind. You've heard me say this before. He's a very kind man and very, very wonderful teacher. Always his concern was for the other person. And he was so nice to everyone except me, seemed to me. He was really hard on me. And to the point where one time I asked him, you know, we were in the office together, and I said, Sensei, I don't understand. I thought that I am your autotori. Autotori means the one who comes after, right? So he had already told me that I was going to replace him. That he was training me to be his replacement. So I was his autotori. I already know that I'm going to be your replacement. So what? Don't you think you ought to treat me well too? And he said, oh, yeah, but actually I can't, because you need it. If I don't treat you like this, you're going to be useless. You have to become a teacher. I can't let you be just like everybody else. You have to learn. You don't understand yet. You still think it's about you doing a good job. You still think it's about you. Get this, folks. Get this clear. We call this the mirror universe. So even when your mind is on the other person, you're serving the universe you are the center of. And this is how we wake up to what is actually happening in every moment to us. It becomes stunningly clear when your attention begins to move away from this constant adjustment, even when it's mature. I say, I'm not talking about a mature ego. I'm talking about moving away altogether from that subject-object relationship that we all cherish so much, and we're so conditioned to. That's why I read the Shokushu tonight about subconscious mind, because what you're doing is you're changing your subconscious mind every single moment, because every moment you're putting a drop in there. And when you begin to be concerned with others' welfare rather than your own, obsessively, when you begin, that just begins, that is what begins to change the nature of the subconscious mind. When the nature of the subconscious mind changes to openness, to loving kindness, to generosity of spirit, then that's what comes out. That's just what comes out. That's natural. See, you're not putting anything on. You're not being somebody special. Okay, so I think that's enough for me right now. Yeah, and that means, of course, that I want to hear from you. about what this makes you feel, think, imagine, wonder. We'll start with Charles Boyer.
Thank you, Sensei. Well, I so much want to be that special person. Yeah, I know, but that guy that it's really present, and it's I know it takes time, and I know it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sitting. So, like, what else can I do but be patient with
Well,
that?
thank you for that. I used to tease Charles Boyer, Carlos, I call him. You don't mind if I call you Carlos, right? Okay. I used to tease Carlos because he was one of the most charming people I'd ever met. He's very charming. And when he begins to lose it, he becomes charming. That's what he does. That's how his subconscious mind must be just filled with charm, oozing charm, because he can be extremely charming. He's a dear friend of mine and a student that I appreciate very deeply. So when I tease you, of course I'm just teasing, but as usual, that charm has virtually disappeared. You're not as charming anymore, thank God. But that has transed from one thing to another thing. What is the other thing that is transcended to? Can you tell me? Why don't you just tell me?
It's something I can't put into words yet, Sensei. It is a little bit. It's something that's. It comes out as very confident, full of myself. It comes out in that way. So.
Okay. Let me just repeat something I said a little bit earlier, which is, the student goes through these phases. So the student makes excuses. In your case, you became very charming. That's the way you did it. But everybody doesn't have those talents. So they make excuses, or they explain the reason I said. They react like, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have done this," or blaming self or blaming other. And even blind adulation happens, which is a ploy, by the way, to get the sensei to be nicer to you. So it's all bullshit, folks. It's all bullshit. I'm sorry to use that gross, crass word, but it's all a ploy. It's all something that our ego does to try to survive for one more moment. That's all it wants. It wants you to just let it run things the way it always did. So it just morphs into something else. It goes through these series. And just when you think you finally hit the right note, you look in the mirror and you see the same old guy sitting looking back at you. So it's a process, and you're right. It takes a lot of sitting, a lot of facing, and sitting. I don't know. I mean, it takes a lot of facing yourself, a lot of really looking in the mirror of life. Yeah. I don't want to present this in such a way that nobody wants to talk to me about it. I don't want you to go, "Oh, yeah, I know it's really hard. So I don't know what to say. I want you to tell me about what you feel about this. What does this make you feel like? I mean, it must be liberating to hear this, don't you think? I'm not making you feel bad, am I? I should be making you feel like, wow, okay. I don't have to be like this all my life. So, Christoph, would you respond to this, please? I'm just going to move around and torture a few people.
Good morning, good evening, Sensei.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's very hot here, actually, yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, very hot. Yeah, strange. I have no idea what to say. I like the way you're putting things. You in a way you are almost scolding us, and even with gestures saying because I'm listening and it's making sense. And then you invite us to open up and share with you, and so it's a strange.
What am I thinking? Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And I felt this myself just then before. And that's why I said, oh my God, the way I've presented this, nobody wants to say anything to me.
Yeah, but I suppose there is no other way around.
Well, I think the point is that they're very important about it. We have to realize that we are self-centered. We are self-centered. We think about ourselves obsessively all the time. And this practice is to learn to at least consider others in the program too. And we start by doing it with our sensei and seeing, just we learn how difficult that is to do with somebody. And we see, oh my God, I'm thinking about myself all the time. But then when you start getting more, this is what I wanted to say, when you start getting more mature in your practice, what is it that's maturing, see? Are we actually getting more humble, or are we just getting more clever? So that's what I'm looking to see when I see you in each person. It sounds like I'm judging you. I'm not, it's not like that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling for that. And I want to be one with that. I want to be with you because that's the only way I can support you. That's the only way. So even if I'm saying these scoldy things that you say.
Well, this is the only word that came to mind, but it was meant in a friendly way.
Yes, I understand. I understand. What about Olaf Schubert? Can you say something, please, about this? Did I strike any chords, Olaf?
Many. Yeah. For a few moments, I felt the same, like Christoph was just explaining, like, oops. Yeah, he caught us, or he caught me.
Okay, so I didn't say all that because I want you to think about yourself some more.
Of course, but I have to talk about me now. Where am I in this, right? Yeah, it's hard to even talk about it. I think it's a I get this reflected back at me when I teach my students, and I see their reaction to how I teach, and I get the reflection, oh, this is what I'm doing. For many years, and I still do, I think often, how can I change my teaching? How can I make it better? Why don't they come to class today? What did I wrong last time? This, how can I make it more accessible for them? But the whole thinking is, what can I change? And what did I wrong? And how can I be better? And I don't know. It's
Everyone is self-obsessed. And,
yeah.
teachers and like students. So really all we have to do is just shine like the sun. The sun doesn't think about warmth, right? It's just shining, brother. That's it. It's filling the universe with light. Just shine. And that is your brilliance. That is the word brilliant. That's what that means. And that's all that's required. Everything else you know already. Everything, I promise you. You don't need to learn any new facts. You just need to hear me say this another 10,000 times. All you have to do, really, is care. All you have to do is just shine. And redouble and redouble and redouble, of course, constantly. And do that without thinking about it, without thinking about yourself doing it. Good luck. Oh, you're doing great. I want to ask Thomas Ziegler, your student, to say something.
Hi, Sensei. I knew that you will pick me. So, yeah, actually, I have the feeling that I didn't get it right. I mean, before. So you know, you changed the picture now, and I saw, pooh. So I may have had, you know, in the last times, maybe had the right, not the right view on my life, yeah, on my situation.
So I think you maybe remember, if you were here, I told everyone that when I was in my 3-year meditation retreat, I was curious as to what this business of enlightenment was. So I asked my teacher, who was clearly enlightened as far as I was concerned, and he said, oh, it's very simple. It's turning about in the deepest seat of consciousness. Just stop looking at yourself and start listening to everybody else. Start seeing everyone else. It's nearly impossible to do, but it happens with those little, oh, wait, I was looking at that differently or backwards or you know. So every time we see a little bit more, we're freer in our ability to give ourselves to others, to give whatever there is here. I say shine like the sun, that's pretty bold. Yeah?
Yeah.
I really want to hear from Toby Vogels. I've just got to say it. Toby, you're on.
Yes, Sensei. I thought I was getting this, Sensei. I was ready. I knew all about this, what you were talking about. And I hear you say it, and I hear myself thinking, I got this. Yes, I know this. So that was my feeling.
Don't tell me that's all you had to say.
That was all I had to say. That was all. I saw myself doing that. Yeah, and yeah, and comparing, listening to all these stories, and even waiting for you to call on me. When am I the one?
Yeah. And
going
what,
to say something?
so what are we to do? That's the question. You know, when you hear something like this, you naturally notice that you are just like everyone else. You're self-obsessed. You think about yourself all the time. It's just the way we go about our life. It's the way everybody does. No one is unique. I got an email this afternoon from Lillian Paiva. She's not here. She couldn't come tonight. And she said, I love these classes so much because I love to listen to Toby and you know, Carlos and Tracy and so forth. Because now I know I'm not the only boob in the room, you know. Well, that's an important thing to realize. This is an international problem. This is a worldwide pandemic. This self-obsession. And so we naturally think, what's to do? You know, well, what's to do is, as I said, is to change what goes into the subconscious mind. But that takes looking really closely. That's why the teacher always says, breathe, 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 sit, sit, sit. Notice, notice, notice. And even if you fail utterly every single day, you still do it. You still do it. Because one day, I promise you, one day, oh, that will happen. Oh, and then again and again and again. It already has happened to you many times, but then it goes away and you forget, right? But it you know, a big part of our practice is patience. Having a deep, deep heart with a lot of gratitude gives us patience. You know, the Tibetans say, better, how does it go? If you haven't started, better not to start. But if you have started, better to finish. Well, that's just sort of a subject-object saying, you know, but so that you have to take it with a grain of salt. But Suzuki's sensei used to say to me, there's nothing more tragic than the student who has been shown the way by the universe, of course, who has had a glimpse and still walks away because of being enslaved by ego needs. Sensei would tell me again and again. Now, I'm just like you. There's no way I was going anywhere, ever. There's no way. So I thought, why is he bothering to tell me this? And then one day, I got pissed off. So it does happen to everybody. I don't care how well you've been brought up or how sincere you are, how committed you are, or how, you know, I mean, in your situation, it's wonderful because you're totally surrounded by, you live in the dojo like some other people too. That's wonderful. That, I mean, you're subsumed by it. You cannot really escape, like some others who set themselves up so there's always an out. So, you know, I mean, it's hard, but if we really look at this opportunity that we have, then we have patience, and we have gratitude, and we're held, Toby. Well, thank you very much for being here, all of you. I didn't really know I was going to say what I said tonight ahead of time. It's not how it works with me. You know, I didn't really, I thought I was going to talk about something else. But, you know, when I see you, then, you know. So thank you for coming. And I hope that this didn't dash any hopes for you. I hope that it inspires you and encourages you and motivates you. I love you all. Thank you very much. Domo arigato.